Down to Biscuit.
Yikes. 5 on the floor. Ride for my dogs. Where here's the thing. You can check the score. Hustle hard, couple scars, wearing bubble frogs. Just like Butler said, you in trouble, y'all. Kept the floor playing. Got it all band. Y'all seen the block. Stop with one hand. And Pat we trust. It's power, have the guts. We're here to bring the heat. Y'all can hang it up.
Welcome to 5 on the Floor, a daily insider show on the Miami Heat and the NBA, featuring Ethan Skolnick, Greg Sylvander, and Alex Toledo, plus others from the 5 Reasons Sports Network.
All right, welcome into 5 on the Floor Live here on the 5 Reasons YouTube channel. This will also be going to the 5 Reason podcast feeds, where you can find us on Red Circle, as well as Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, and more. Make sure you hit the like and subscribe buttons here. I want to get to one of the sponsors before we start, and then we'll get to tonight's result, which is a Heat loss. They lose and drop to 4-6 on the season, falling in Indiana as Tyler Herro misses a shot at the buzzer. We are sponsored, as always, by our friend Lynette. You can find her at insurancebylynette.com. That's 2 N's and 2 T's for A-Aggressive Insurance. It's A-Aggressive Insurance. Lynette's going to take care of you for whether it's your life insurance, any kind of insurance, basically, your life insurance, your rental insurance, and also, of course, your car insurance. I can tell you that I've sent people to her who I did not think could actually get driver's licenses, and they were able to do it through Lynette. She just does a great job there. Go to insurancebylynette.com. She's based kind of in the Lauderhill area, but she services all of South Florida, and she's a big fan of everything that we do, and you can find her often commenting on our streams. So go to insurancebylynette.com. There's the phone number, 954-581-8800. All right, here's today's floor plan. As you can see, I've got, if you're watching on the YouTube channel, I've got Greg Sylvander. You can follow me at Greg Sylvander. I've got Brady Hawk. You can follow me at Brady Hawk 305. Congratulations to our guy, Alex Toledo, who's now working on the weekends at WSVN Channel 7, but he's still going to be with us, still producing, still appearing, but he may miss some of these episodes here on the weekend. We will get to the comments. Manny Chang is producing, and we'll get to all of them as we go. But I want to go through a few things here tonight, okay? The first thing is the Heat didn't get to 100 points against the team that came in the bottom 5 in pretty much every single defensive category. And largely that was because they just didn't shoot the ball well enough. They had looks, and we're going to talk about those looks, particularly in the first half. They just weren't going down. Lowry and Robinson were building brick houses. They really were only getting production, and this is why the Herro thing is a little complicated tonight, because they're really, without Jimmy, they're really only getting production from Herro, from Strus, Bam in moments, Vincent in moments. I thought Martin played pretty well, but nothing from Lowry or Robinson tonight. Was Robinson finished 0 for 6? Was that what he ended up with? And some of those looks were kind of game-changing type looks. It turned out the Heat kept getting close in the second half, but they dug themselves too deep a hole again with the missed shooting. So that's kind of the first thing. But the other thing that I kind of want to get to, and I know we're going to talk about it, is, again, at the end of games, okay, we just did an episode. How are Herro and Butler going to work together at the end of games? Now, no Jimmy tonight. I just feel like they could have done something better than they did with, 7.6 seconds left, and Tyler essentially in an ISO situation way up at the top with the fall away. Let's get – Brady, I'm going to go to you first tonight on that. Let's just diagram kind of the final play, because, again, the missed shots and all the rest of the stuff, the fact that they didn't score the way they should have against this team, the fact that they seemed to sleepwalk at times in the first half, none of that matters if they execute the last play and at the very least send it to overtime. And they had the opportunities to do that, especially with Gabe Vincent kind of stealing a jump ball. They got a bunch of things broke their way late. What happened on that last play? Because that can't be the design.
Yeah, it was interesting because we kept talking about late game offense and the fact that they ran the same play in back-to-back games in crunch time. So I was hinting at the fact, I was like, do we see it a third time? But my reason I wasn't I was hesitant on that specifically is because in the first 2 games, they're trying to hunt for a matchup. In this game, I didn't think they were trying to hunt for a specific matchup on the floor. It was just trying to get a decent shot. So I was like, they're probably not going to go for that look. But if you want the ball in the hands of Tyler Herro, I would think with 7.6 seconds left, you give him a screen, because I even before that point in the fourth quarter, all throughout that game, he was having trouble in terms of just kind of turnovers at that point and stuff. When he was trying to get isolation, Bam was kind of running over for screens, and that was when he would get going. But it would just felt like when there's 3 to 4 seconds left, it's like, okay, if you want to force up that shot in isolation, go ahead. When there's 7.6 seconds left and you get a screen, if they send two at Tyler Herro, there's time to throw the pocket pass to Bam. And if that's not there, you probably have time for one more skip to the corner if that person helps down. So that's kind of where my thought process was, that I was like, you just saw what worked the entire game, and we have this conversation all the time. Herro, Bam, pick and rolls. Like, why not go to it in down the stretch at that point? So that was kind of where I came down on it. I think going for the win, once again, like even I hate to bring it up, but like we had this discussion after Game 7 Eastern Conference Finals. Like, I don't have a problem going for the kill at any point in games like that. Especially in this game, like this game was totally in the mud. Like this was like one of the worst games I've watched. Like, I'm going to be completely honest. Like, it was an ugly game, like calls, travels, foul calls, everything. So the fact that they were able to do that and just try to take a three is not my problem with it, but it was just kind of the look they got just felt more problematic.
Well, I felt like no matter what they call that building, whether it's Bankers Life or Conseco Fieldhouse or whatever the heck it is now, all the games there have always been in the mud. Like,
they have,
right? It just feels like that. Greg, you and I talked about it. I mean, they never sweep up there, no matter who's there. They never win 2 in a row. But this one was there. That's the thing. That's the front. And I was just talking about the end, but I thought their process in the first half was good. It's just the results weren't good. And we've talked about this. Like when Lowry and Robinson were starting together last year, when those two, and they don't have the same roles, obviously, because Robinson doesn't have the same role, but without Jimmy, he has a role. When they shot the ball well last year, they always won. And and they were one of 16 tonight. And this thing with Kyle, and I know people are going to get on me because I wasn't really participating in the process here the other night, and Kyle had a big game, so it was going to be like, oh, I either wasn't around to praise Kyle on a good night, but there's just too many of these nights. Like, I mean, you don't have Jimmy; he needs to be better than that. And I've been a big Duncan defender because of some of the other things that he's added to his game, and he's given them good minutes. But he's a 3-point specialist who goes 0 for 6 or 3. And at least 4 of those looks, I'll rewatch them, but at least 4 of those looks were wide open. So I don't know. People are saying the Heat deserved to lose tonight. I thought they actually got better shots than Indiana through the course of the game. Their guys just didn't make them.
Yeah. I mean, 28% from 3 is never going to be a recipe for success with Miami. But I think this is the bigger number to me. In the last play, really has the explanatory power that we need to kind of show how it manifested throughout the game compared to their 2 recent victories. And it comes down to this, like you see in that timeout that Spo huddles with Kyle before he addresses the bench. And then, so like he's picking Kyle's brain about like the last play, right? And then they huddle up, Kyle, they draw up the play, they go out there, and then Tyler does an ISO. You know, we all saw what it looked like. Look at the assist numbers. Miami had 17 assists tonight. Against Golden State, they had 32 assists. Against Sacramento, they had 28 assists. Tonight, 17 assists. So to me, it was a game where they could have absolutely stole this one because Indiana is really not that good, frankly. Like, let's just be honest. They have a lot of good young talent, and I'm intrigued by them and the way that team works. They're going to be around, and they're going to be pesky for a while. But this is a game they could have absolutely had, but there was too much of, I don't know. I wouldn't say ball stopping. That's not the right word for it, but just in terms of really getting that thing zipping around and making an Indiana team that's already deficient on defense get more confused and challenge them a little bit more. I just feel like that was missing tonight overall.
Yeah, I like the Pacers' young talent, but you're right. I mean, there's not a collective there yet. This is a game Miami should win. Okay, I mean, Matherin's going to be great. I mean, he already looks great. And we know what Halliburton is. And, I called Heald in Prize Picks over 17.5 or 18.5. And I think he went over that in the midway through the second quarter. They have some scoring ability, but Miami held them to 101. I mean, that wasn't the huge issue tonight. It's just that they couldn't shoot. Let's go back to the Tyler conversation here. And then Manny, after the break, we'll throw up some of these comments and we'll react to them. But when we talk about ball stopping, okay, and the assist numbers being down, well, even though he puts up assists, Jimmy gets blamed a lot for ball stopping, right? That sometimes there's not as much flow when Jimmy's in. There's a little bit more movement. Well, you don't have that excuse tonight. And it did feel like it was a little bit of, I don't know, kind of pick your poison here because you needed Tyler's scoring, but also when the ball's in Tyler's hands a lot, sometimes it doesn't move, right, Brady? And that kind of manifested itself on the last play.
Yeah, I don't know. It felt like there was a large. Greg was saying about he didn't know if he would say the word ball stopping, but I'll say it. Like I felt like there was a lot of ball stopping in this game. Like especially just there was certain pockets. Like they opened this game up early in the first quarter, and I was sitting there saying I was like the movement's great. Like they were moving the ball, they were running like post splits for Bam. The ball was moving. They kept getting 2 feet in the paint, and then all of a sudden, like 6 minutes into the game, that all stopped. Like and they was just from that point on, it was just clunky the rest of the way. So I don't know. I don't blame Tyler in that way because he was the one guy that was kind of getting them out of those spurts. And I thought he was moving the ball well. Like, I don't think he was part of the problem of the ball kind of stopping. But it's just hard to continue to have like consistent ball movement when you're getting great, like you were saying, great looks over and over and you're just not hitting it. Like you said Duncan maybe 4. I would probably go over on that on Prize Picks. That I think he probably had over 4 wide open looks because it felt like every one of them was just like a really good shot for him. Even Gabe in the first half had some really good looks that didn't go in. Lowry's looks were good. Like they were getting decent looks. And other than probably Tyler, Max, and Bam, other than those 3, they just weren't getting them. So the Jimmy thing is definitely interesting because you probably would expect that to be the case because you're leaning, we keep saying this phrase all the time, but leaning offense in a game without Jimmy because you're rolling out lineups that are more just scoring. They have more scoring. They had the Tyler, Max, Duncan lineup out there a lot, which scares people. Like it scares me because I don't know how you're supposed to defend in that for large pockets of the game unless you go 2-3 zone, which they did, which I thought did a good job. And like you said before, guys like Halliburton, these other guys just hit just deep threes, and I don't know what you do with that because they're just hitting good shots. But you can't just score that many points in a game like this, especially when those young guys are going off and expect to win. And I know, like we're gonna sit here and talk about that final shot, but there was just so many more problems in that final shot in this game that I think need to be highlighted.
Well, Gabe, I mean, you mentioned Gabe, and I thought he gave them some good minutes. He also completely airballed an open 3 from the corner. I mean, it's pretty much everybody had those moments. All right, the Super Chat comments we get to right away. So, Manny, throw those up as we see them. We'll get to some of the other comments after the break. Well, let's start with this one. This comes from Guy Productions. Ethan, what happened to Spo's final play calling? Used to be creative with Big 3. Now it's just Jimmy or Tyler ISO at the top of the key. Well, we discussed this yesterday, because they ran the same play 2 straight games with the exact same screening action, with the exact same personnel, with the exception of Tyler and from Jimmy, and they made both shots. And nobody's complaining that there was no creativity in those situations, right? But this has been an issue, and it was an issue during the Big 3 era too, okay? The thing that happened in the Big 3 era that got them out of it was that they had 2 guys in LeBron and Dwayne who could kind of dig them out of those situations. And then we remember when they were not doing it, Chris Bosh made a hell of a lot of late big shot. Bosh made a lot of those shots, especially when Dwayne and LeBron were not playing, whether it was in Portland or in Atlanta or in San Antonio. People remember those games, right? You don't have as many of those guys to create. You don't have as many of those options. Tyler needs a screen. We've discussed this, okay? He's not going to blow by anybody. Kyle needs like 6 screens, okay, to get anywhere, right? I mean, let's just again be honest.
And a running start.
And a running start from 2013. So, they don't have as many options to go to there. But even during the Big 3 era, or right after it, is kind of where the late game play calling, in my view, sort of fell apart because it became Dwayne ISOs and fall away jumpers, 2-point jumpers from 21 feet. Because and Spo saying I'll live or die with Dwayne at the end of the game, even though Dwayne wasn't Dwayne at that point. And I don't feel necessarily that the late game play calling has been a strength of Eric's. He has many, many strengths. I don't think it's his primary strength. I don't. But also it just comes down to what the players do in those situations, right? It's what they do with the call. And you mentioned it. I don't think that the call was for Tyler to just freelance on his own and chuck something up from 28 feet. I don't believe that. But Spo's not going to say that publicly. He's not going to say that. He's not going to say it. Tyler might say it. Okay, he might own up to it. But I'm with you. To me, the play call there was what Brady talked about. The play call should have been Tyler, Bam, pick and roll. That's it. And here's the other thing. Did the Heat miss a free throw tonight? They did not, right?
Nope.
That's the reason they stayed in the damn
continues,
game. Right. And Indiana missed 5 free throws in the fourth quarter. Okay, or 6 actually, because they missed 5 before Halliburton missed one of the late ones. So, I mean, in that situation, you run a Bam Tyler pick and roll. What's the worst that's going to happen there? Bam gets fouled on a roll.
Yeah.
Do you trust Bam to make the final 2 free throws? Because the way he was shooting, I do.
Yeah.
To play devil's advocate, though, I think the worst possible thing is they send two at Tyler and it's a turnover. Like that would be my worst outcome because he just has to make that pass, and I think he's improved in that area after what we saw last season. But I think that's the worry there, I guess. But I'm still banking on that more than anything we just saw.
And put Tyler in that position because truthfully, I think the Heat need to see him make those decisions and go through some of that. And so like this is part of that process. And he elected to take the shot. But I mean the rebounding battle, equal. Turnover battle, equal. The Pacers made 6 more field goals. And that's essentially where this game was won or lost. It's essentially right there. It's just interesting. I think Tyler he tends to make the right play. I just think tonight he could have likely been more aggressive getting to the basket.
I think that's fair. Let me ask you one question, and then I'm going to introduce another sponsor. We're going to get to the comments. In that situation at the end of the game, who would you rather have taken the shot, Strus or Herro? Just think about that. We're going to talk about that after the break. Do want to tell you about another sponsor of the 5 Reasons Sports Network. This is a new one here, but we do this every single show now, and we're going to give the topic for it today. And it's called ODM Performance Solutions. That's ODM Performance Solutions. You can find them at odmpsi.com. That's odmpsi.com. This is a consulting firm. Team building is hard. Just ask the Brooklyn Nets right now. ODM Performance Solutions can help you build a winning team and keep it together if you're looking to fill an important role in your company. ODM Performance Solutions can help you find C-suite level leadership, sales rainmakers, plus management and operational support staff. To find out more, check out ODM PSI. That's odmpsi.com, or give them a call. The phone number is 954-434-0634. All right, the performance solution of the game here tonight, in my view, I'm going to go back to the point guard. And I know that everybody's going to say that I'm picking on Kyle here because I missed his really good game. But again, we're talking about the end of game situations. And Greg, you're talking about Spo going to Kyle, but Kyle's not a factor in those situations, right? Like we're not even, and again, if you have a $28 million point guard, you would think he would be a factor in more of these situations. And I'm not saying he should have been tonight because of the way he shot the ball, but this is kind of my frustration is they've got a $28 million point guard and they're getting $12 million play.
Yeah, well, he was the inbounder, so he did have some part of the play. But I understand what you're saying.
So was Shane Battier during the Big 3 era, and they weren't paying him $28 million, but that's a whole nother issue.
No, and so to lean into your point, like I would expect that you would want Kyle amongst the action because he should be somebody who can, on a broken play, make a shot because he's a consummate professional that's been doing that in high leverage situations before. So I agree with you. To just use him as an inbounder appears to be a little bit like underutilizing. But here's the other part of this. Like Gabe Vincent continues to look really, really good. And with his ability to play defense, the shooting continues to be strong. He's getting steals, playing big minutes. Spo is trusting him to play entire fourth quarters in I think this is 3 games in a row that he played the entire fourth quarter, if I'm not mistaken. Keep me honest, our viewers and listeners. So I do think that that's just an interesting thing to continue to watch because they have to make decisions on Max Strus and Gabe Vincent this summer. And the more and more you watch this team, I don't know that those are 2 guys you necessarily want to lose long term. So that's a conversation for another day. But the performance solution, more Gabe Vincent for me.
I'm with you on that, but here's the thing with that, Brady, and then we're going to start throwing the comments up, is that we used to talk about Tyler playing the whole fourth quarter, right? Well, now you got Gabe playing the whole fourth quarter lately, and he went through a stretch last year where Max played every minute of every fourth quarter for like a month or 2. Mm-hmm. So they have a lot of guys that Spoelstra trusts in those situations, and to be honest with you, I am getting to the point where there are some times where I would play Gabe and Max with Tyler, with Bam, with Jimmy, which means Kyle is on the bench. Is that crazy?
I definitely don't think it's crazy. I think it's hard to say from Eric Spoelstra's perspective because I just cannot see consistently him going to Gabe over Kyle with, in crunch time. Like, I just don't really see that happening. Should it happen? I think it should depend on the game because, like, in the Kings game the other night, Kyle should have been closing. In this game, you probably should have leaned Gabe if Jimmy was playing, because both of them need to be on the floor tonight without Jimmy. So you're basically picking between the two, because I think obviously you have Jimmy, Tyler, Bam. I think Max needs to be on the floor. The way he's looking, you hinted at, them needing contracts and Gabe playing well. Like Max is playing at an incredible level right now that we use the word gravity all the time. Late in games, you need that on the floor. So those are the 4 that are going to be on the floor. And then we move on to 5 on the floor here. And you got to pick between Gabe and Kyle. Like that's kind of what the point you get at. And we were having this discussion yesterday, and I was kind of hinting at basically I think Gabe's the odd man out, but it's like on nights like this, it gets a little different. But I think where it comes down to is like if you have Jimmy and Tyler both playing, like if it's not like one of these last 2 games, Gabe at times could make more sense because you need the less ball dominant guy. It makes more sense in that way, that defends at a high level and pressures the ball. Like if we're talking straight on paper, it probably would make more sense. So I don't think it's crazy to say, will it happen? I kind of doubt it.
I think the only way it happens is if Kyle takes a couple nights off and Gabe kind of asserts himself in that role. And even then it's going to be challenging. All right, Manny's going to put up some of the comments here. We're going to react to them. We appreciate everybody joining us. I do want to mention, of course, our sponsor for fantasy, which is Prize Picks. Use the code 5, F-I-V-E. Here we go from Manuel. Why call timeout to run the worst possible play? Just run pick and roll with Bam and see what happens. I'm not so sure that wasn't the plan. I'm curious to see what Eric actually says about this, but I don't think it was just, Tyler ISO and, take a shot from 28 feet, falling away at the buzzer. I doubt that was the initial plan, but something did not occur there that should have. Yes, Brady.
No, Greg mentioned before him being in Kyle's ear before that play. I saw him like right before the play happened in Bam's ear. Like he was sitting there, had Bam next to him
as they walked out. Yep.
Right. So it's like it's not all the time meaning that the ball's going to him in that spot just because he's talking to him. But you think he'd be a little bit more involved in the play if he's sitting there giving him a dialogue on the final play. So that's where it gets a little weird for me that it was just Bam sitting in the dunker spot in the last play of the game.
I wonder if Bam missed the assignment, which doesn't typically happen with him a whole lot. All right, Manny, throw the next ones up. This comes from Jay Smith. Guys didn't show up. They were lacking effort tonight. That's unacceptable, especially in a winnable game. I will say this, and I've said this before, okay? This team has talent, but it doesn't have overwhelming talent, okay? Particularly when you don't have Jimmy. And I do feel that this year they have sleptwalked too often. They've acted like an entitled team. And when that happens in Heat history, okay, even with more talented teams, okay, the 2013-2014 Heat team still had LeBron. They still had Dwayne, even though he was kind of a shell of himself. They still had Chris Bosh. They sleptwalked through a lot of games in the first half of that season, okay? And that season was a frustration, even though they reached the finals. The 06-07 team had more talent, probably, man for man, because you still had Dwayne at the peak of his powers and you still had Shaq, okay? And that team sleptwalked through the whole damn year until they got swept off the floor against Chicago. The team 2 years ago sleptwalked a lot. This team is not – they're good, okay? But they have holes, and they have to cover up for their holes with effort. And, we're probably going to do an episode here in the next couple of days on Caleb Martin because I feel like I saw this tweet, and maybe it was from Trilly or for somebody else, but I agree with it. Caleb's played really well. He's just in the wrong role. Like, he's done everything you could expect him to do, but he shouldn't be playing starting power forward. Like, exactly. He should be Jimmy's backup and a jack of all trades off the bench. And on a night like this tonight, he would start, but they would have a 4 playing next to him, right? He would start in place of Jimmy like he did against Milwaukee last year. So we are going to get into how the Caleb experiment has worked through 10 games, but he's going to bring effort. Strus is going to bring effort. Vincent's going to bring effort. That Bam will bring effort, but again, maybe not with the aggressiveness that you want offensively. And I will just say this, for the rest of the team, I'm not sure. That's where you're at. With a lot of the other guys, it's not consistent. Okay. The reason that Strus and Vincent and Martin stick out so much is because they're running at a different speed than a lot of the other guys on this team. It's noticeable, right?
Yeah. It's a good way of articulating
that 7-0 run, like it's noticeable. Like he plays harder, correct? I mean, this is what it looks like. All right, let's get to at least 3 or 4 more comments here before we go, because Super Chat we always read. Bro, NBA came back to take the win. Uncalled travel versus Kings, now overturning the goaltending call for a clean block. I do think that was a bad call, but they got the 2 free throws right after. I think that only cost them 2 seconds, right? Because the call was overturned, but then they end up getting to the line after that? Or am I missing something? Because there was the inbounds after that, right? That was at I'll have to look.
No, I think you're right.
That was the Tyler foul.
But,
yeah, it was the Tyler foul.
But to the commenter's point, I wish that because Kyle just grabbed the ball and literally just flung it up at the rim and it went in, that they would have just counted that basket and continued to play. Like, why are we doing this? So anyway.
No, I'm with you on that. But I don't think that ultimately determined. I mean, it cost them 2 seconds. I don't think that ultimately determined the game. I don't know that they would have run something else with 10 seconds as opposed to 7.6 seconds if Tyler's intention was to take a fall away 30-footer. I'm not sure. Okay. Let's get to 3 more here. And again, we appreciate the comments that come in here. Manny will throw them up. From Jay Smith, is it wise to rely heavily on Herro's offense for a full season? We know Lowry and Jimmy are going to miss games and Tyler may not have it every night. It's not, but where else do you go? I mean, unless Bam is going to take the step of being a consistent 25-point scorer, which we know, if you look at Bam's numbers this year, Brady, his numbers are better in the second half of all the games, right? His splits are much better. It takes him a while to kind of get into it. So you're not counting on him. Are you going to make Max your primary scorer? I mean, it's Tyler. That's right.
Yeah, definitely Tyler. And I want to say, like, we didn't get to talk about Bam enough, but I thought he was the reason they were even in that game at the end. Like, the lead was falling away and the offense was stalling. And he had a couple of plays there midway through the fourth where it was like, okay, now they're kind of back in this. He had a mid-range jumper. There was a play that was like totally just out of the way, and he threw like a fake handoff and he drove and got an and one. And it was like, okay, they have a little bit of life here. Like, other than that, the offense has been horrible. So he has that element when they don't have Kyle or Jimmy on certain nights. He's going, like, you want to expect that type of stuff, but Tyler's still the main element here. Like, I thought he still had a pretty decent game other than that one kind of misstep of a game. I don't think there's much of a problem there. They just need shooting. Like, I don't think it's a problem with their number one scorer tonight. Its problem is just like having consistent shooting around that number one scorer, and it will probably be okay. So I don't really have a problem with them getting through the season with these kind of nights where they where guys take nights off, which we probably should be expecting Kyle to do so pretty soon. At least I'm expecting it to be happening.
All right, one of the super chats that came in earlier, I want to make sure we read it from Jason. This came in a bit ago. I thought Caleb was supposed to be better than PJ offensively. What's the point in starting him if he's going to be giving you PJ numbers offensively? But the numbers are different, though. I don't think they were expecting Caleb to be a 20-point scorer. It's more cutting. It's more movement off the ball. It's a little bit more versatility. I just can't come back to this, Greg. I don't think he's the problem. I think the role is the problem.
True. And listen, his numbers, he's at 8 points, 4.5 rebounds. He gets 1.5 assists. So it's like contributing a little bit there. 41% from 3. He plays defense, high energy, definitely like fits with what they need in terms of versatility. So you're totally right. It's just he's out of position in terms of on a overnight basis. He would be better as that utility man off the bench, as the Jimmy sub that can play a little bit of 3, a little bit of 4. So that's his primary role. I think that, like, to compare, I mean, the numbers are better than PJ Tucker's numbers if we're looking at them like just counting stat wise. But remember, Caleb is not supposed to be PJ Tucker. They're supposed to be another player that maybe has a little more acreage that is in the role at the 4.
All right, a few of Highsmith comments are coming in, so I'm just going to get to them. We are reading your super chat, Jason. We just did. I'm sorry. It just took us a little bit to get to it. We always do. A bunch of comments about Haywood Highsmith tonight. And this is a frustration, I think, that's growing for Heat fans because everybody got attached to Jamal Cain and his upside in the preseason. It just kind of feels, Brady, like Haywood's just sort of out there running around. Is that fair? Like, I know they ran a lot of stuff through him in Summer League, but this is a different role. I mean, you talk about somebody who's supposed to have some PJ Tucker tendencies. It's him, but I don't know. He doesn't look like he has any purpose out there. I think Brady froze. Did you freeze?
Okay, I'm back.
Right.
I was getting ready to say it because it's 100% fair to say that, because it felt like at times he was just running around out there. Like, there was a point where I don't even think he touched the ball in his opening stint. Like, I literally don't think he touched the ball really that maybe 1 to 2 times. But his role was coming in was supposed to be a 3-and-D guy that was limited as an offensive player. But he's not even hitting the spot up 3 or being utilized as a spot up threat. So I don't really know what's going on here. Like, that's kind of what comes down to. I thought this was a night that was perfect for Jamal Cain. They literally sent him over, flew him over to Indiana late just so he can get to this game, because they were out so many guys that he doesn't even get the opportunity in the 9th man when Haywood Highsmith's looking like that. Like, that's where I kind of thought it was a little bit weird. My question is, if Nikola Jovic is playing tonight, who gets those minutes? Because I kind of think he might have played Haywood Highsmith still. Like, that's kind of where I feel right now. Should he have? Definitely not. Like, I do not think that they should keep going to that anyway. When Omer Yurtseven comes back and they get some of these guys back, we're not going to be looking at this type of play anyway, because I think they'll size up on nights when they don't have a guy like that. But right now, when I put something in my takeaways, I was like, the bench is thin right now. Like, you look that Omer Yurtseven and Victor Oladipo were both out. Were supposed to be a part of their 9-man rotation. Duncan, we were kind of saying on that fringe, and he's kind of was playing fourth quarter minutes the last few nights. And you keep going down the line. It's like they're just forcing stuff here down when you're on the bench. Like, their one guy that they had as a go-to threat was Max Strus. Every game this season, when that offense stalled in the starting lineup, Max came in and got a couple buckets that they needed and kind of just threw things in the right direction. Then you put Max in the starting lineup here, and it's Gabe, Duncan, and Dedmon coming in. And if the shooting's not there for them, I just don't know what you do. And then you bring in Haywood, who's not going to be an offensive threat. So I don't know. I think I don't see anything wrong with people wanting to see Jamal Cain. I want to see Jamal Cain. Just the stuff that we saw, the energy that we saw, the athleticism that we saw. I feel like that's the type of guy that can spark games like this in Indiana when things just look so terribly.
I mean, Haywood Highsmith to me is like paper mache PJ Tucker right now. Like, there's just, I don't know, there's nothing there. And we got a couple of these comments. You mentioned this one came in from Daniel Firesword. I'll just read a couple more here. Do you think they should start Strus instead of Caleb, have Caleb come off the bench replacing Jimmy? The problem with that is exactly what Brady's talking about, because Caleb's not going to be a leading scorer for them off the bench. Like, without Oladipo, this is in a lot of ways an Oladipo problem. And I'm gonna come back to this because this team behind the scenes, everybody I talked to in the organization was hyping Victor Oladipo. To me, this is why we're not running it back. Everybody thinks we're running it back. We're not running it back because we're getting a healthy Victor Oladipo who's going to go through training camp with these guys. And now, as I've reported, it's going to be weeks, okay, before we see him again. And, that's the issue, because otherwise you could put Strus in the starting lineup, okay, and size up a little bit, get some more scoring, get some more spacing, bring Caleb off the bench. At least you'd have Depot kind of as a primary scorer off the bench. They don't have that guy now. They don't. And so Strus has to come off the bench. All right, last one here. We appreciate it. This one, a super chat comes in from Corbs. We appreciate the donation here. I'm not used to saying that. Good offensive player, can get a quality shot in under 3 seconds. Tyler has to get rid of the ball faster if the shot isn't there. I will close here because now they're 4-6. Now they got to come back and beat Portland on Monday. I thought maybe, give that one away, and then they got the 2 against Charlotte, which should be wins, right? Because there's not that much material on that Charlotte team right now. But the final thing here. Do you think even if there had been another play run that Tyler was giving that ball up? Because I don't.
No, he was taking that shot. He just hit a game winner the other night. I mean, and you know what? The way he was playing, I want him to be within that action and maybe most of the time take that shot. So I have no problem with it. I just wish there was a little bit more going on around him when that was taking place, just because it makes things more interesting with more options. But to your point, as we close, Portland, Charlotte twice, Phoenix, which I know everyone says, oh, Phoenix is scary. When Phoenix comes to Miami, those games can be pretty close. This is a big homestand because then it's Toronto, Washington, Cleveland, and Minnesota on the road. So they got to capitalize on this homestand. So all is not lost.
We appreciate everybody with their comments. We do get to them. They do, even if we don't read them, they kind of inspire future podcasts. We're going to do a podcast on Sunday. Catch that on the podcast feeds. Make sure you subscribe there as well. For Greg, for Brady, for our sponsors, Prize Picks, use the code 5FIVE, Aggressive Insurance, insurancebyLynette.com, and ODMPSI.com, ODM Performance Solutions. Have a good night, everybody.